criticize the performance and praise the performer. You see, if you understand an individual can do a lousy job, or an individual can do a bad thing, but that does not mean the individual is a lousy individual or a bad individual. One of the phrases I use daily, almost regardless of the subject matter I'm talking about, is let's just all remember that failure is an event. It's not a person. Yesterday ended last night. And just because an individual did not do a good job on the one thing, that really has no bearing on their value as a person. And if we can retain that value as a person in their minds, then their performance will become better and better. That's the way you build those winning relationships. Now I want to close it with a story which I think says an awful lot. It's a love story. But it's a different kind of a love story. I love to play golf. I don't believe there's a living, breathing human being on the face of this earth who loves the game as good as I do. Now, there are a lot of people that play it lots better, but nobody has as much fun as I do. I love to get out there. Don't get to get out there often. So when I do, I like to tee that little sucker up so I can get at it. Now, I rear back, and when I go out there, I get after it. Boom! And if I can find it, I hit that sucker again. Well, anyhow, I learned a long time ago that a fast game of golf and a slow game of golf both require about 5 hours. And when you travel as I do, I'm not about to come home and kiss the redhead. The redhead is my wife of all of these years, and my son goodbye and head for the golf course. I mention my son because he came 10 years after our youngest daughter, and when they were coming up, golf really wasn't in the game or in the cards for me to any degree. But after my travels, I didn't want to come home and leave my family, but I love to play golf. So I came up with a brilliant idea, if I do say so myself. Bought my wife and my son a set of golf clubs, and everybody was excited about it, except my wife and my son. But they went along with me for about 5 games. End of the 5th game, the redhead said, honey, I just don't like to play golf. Instead of when I talk about my wife, I always call her the redhead. When I'm talking to her, it's Sugar Baby. And her name is Jean. The redhead said, honey, I just don't like to play golf. Said it's too hot or too cold or too wet or too dry or too windy or whatever. Count me out, but you and Tom keep playing. You love it and you need that time with him. Well, I went golf buddy number 1. End of the summer, my boy said, Dad, I don't hardly know how to tell you this, because I know how good you like to play golf, and I know how good you like to be with me. But Dad, golf is just not my game. I said, just count me out. Now, Dad, I'll wrestle with you. I'll run with you. I'll ride the bicycle with you. I'll play catch with you. I'll do any of those things, Dad, but golf, that's not my game. Count me out. There went golf buddy number 2. Well, for the next 3 or 4 years, there wasn't much golf in my life. And then one night, we were out to dinner. My sticks were in the trunk of the car. We were on the way back home. We passed a driving range. My boy suddenly said, Dad, let's stop and hit a few. Well, my boy's a smooth talker. So we stopped to hit a few. We were banging away, and he said, Dad, let me borrow one of your woods. So I handed my son my 4-wood, and he choked up on it a little bit. He reared back. He let the string out. He busted that sucker about 40 yards further than he had ever hit a golf ball before. I'll tell you, he turned around grinning like you've never seen before. Biggest smile I'd ever seen on my son's face until 2 days later. When I saw that grin that night, though, I knew I had me a golfing buddy. A couple of days later, we were out on the course. We were on a par 4. I gave my son the 4-wood, and again, he choked up, he reared back. He poleaxed that sucker right down the middle, had a little draw on it, hit the ground running like a scared rabbit, stopped dead center, right in the middle of the fairway. Perfect position. We get down to the ball. He takes his 5-iron out, just like you see him do it on television. He kept his head down. He smooth stroked that sucker. It took off. It got right over the green. It landed just as soft as a feather, about 30 feet from the pin. He's hunting his bird. Now, if you don't know anything about golf, that means that if he sinks the putt, he's 1 under par on this hole. If you don't know what that means, it means he done good. So I showed my boy how to line the putt. I showed him how to stroke it. And the minute he stroked that putt, I knew it was in the hole. But when that ball hit the bottom of that cup, that boy jumped straight up about 6 feet. Still beat me to the ground by 5 seconds, I'll tell you. You're talking about excitement. Man, I was excited. I grabbed my boy and hugged him. We did a victory dance there for a couple of minutes. Then all of a sudden I realized I was in trouble. See, I was on the green in 2 also. I was only about 10 feet from the cup. I was hunting my bird. I knew that if I missed my putt, my boy would think I'd done it on purpose so he could win. That would have given him a cheap victory, which is quite a loss. So I determined that I was going to do the very best I could, so that if I did miss, then I could honestly say, congratulations, son, you've won it fair and square. Well, my best effort always includes a little providential help, which I believe is perfectly legitimate, even on the golf course, maybe especially on the golf course. Well, anyhow, I lined the putt as well as I know how to line a putt. I stroked it as well as I've ever stroked a putt in my life, and just like it had eyes, it went straight to the bottom of the cup. Before I reached down to pick it up, I looked at my son and I said, now tell me the truth, boy. Were you pulling for Dad? I think you know what it would have meant to my son had I missed the putt. He was 11 years old. He had never beaten me a hole of golf. It would have meant a great deal to him. Yet quietly and yet very firmly, without any hesitation, my boy looked me right in the eye and said, Dad, I always pull for you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is love. That's pure love. That's what we need in every home on this entire globe. It's what we need between the parent and the child. It's what we need between the educator and the student. It's what we need between the employer and the employee. It's what we need between the sales and marketing person and the person they're trying to persuade to take action. You see, if you really have that feeling where you're pulling for the other person, if you believe in what you're doing so strongly that you can pull for the other person to buy for their benefit, at that instant you become infinitely more persuasive, infinitely more professional, infinitely more productive. If as a manager you can get so concerned about your people where your feeling is you're pulling for them to do their best for their benefit, that's communicated. You see, it is so true. A wise person said it long ago. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. That's the essence of building winning relationships. By these ideas, this concept, these philosophies, follow through on them. Put them into practice on a daily basis. Because if you do, I can close this session as I close all sessions by saying, if you'll do these things, I'll see you. And yes, I really do mean you at the top.